And there we are. Welcome everyone to LifeShot podcast. Daniel Rollins from Dynamic Osteopath
Yeah,
Clinic. Was
that's
that right?
great. Dynamic osteopathy.
I got it. And Daniel, you operate out of Cambridge in London. And
Yeah.
we're going to speak to Daniel today about what he does as an osteopath, dealing with people's joint health, their back pain, their leg pain, or whatever it is that you're in pain in your body. Actually, I went to Daniel to see you about my jaw pain, and you looked at some certain things going on here and the neck tension. So today we're going to talk about that, maybe some tips and tricks, or just some information about how you guys can get healthier and just feel better in your body. Daniel, I just want to welcome you to the program.
Thank you. It's good to be here.
Great, man. So we'll just, we'll start off with how it was that you got into this field or this line of work. What interested you about helping people to feel better?
Yeah. So I had quite a physical background. I was very interested in sport. One of my main things was badminton. But as also a skateboarder, I ran into a lot of injuries. Rolling ankles. Lots of falls and stuff like that. So I'm well accustomed to hurting myself, and I got involved in personal training and started helping others to try and get their or optimize their bodies and try to achieve their goals. I found at some level there was a point where we reached a threshold, either of their tolerance or me not being educated enough to give them the right things at that particular point in time. So that spurred a little bit more interest in kind of massage and more therapeutic work, but also things like Pilates. So that was the real turnaround as far as exercise, because before it was working, really hard, trying to get hypertrophy, trying to get muscle length, trying to improve muscle function and joint range of motion. But I found at that particular time, I was missing something. So I started to get a little bit more interested in massage. Then I did a sports massage diploma. And on that sports massage diploma, there was an osteopath who was teaching us, and he was a bit of a showman. Showed us a few funky things, and I thought, that's really interesting. It's really interesting what they're doing in order to restore joint motion. And at that particular time, I was getting quite interested in models of joint care, and there was one particular guy called Punjabi who talked about a stability triangle. Now, obviously, that triangle is very limited. It doesn't really take into consideration social aspects and behavioural stuff. It's really looking at joint mobility, joint stability. And there was a third component that, as a personal trainer, I wasn't really able to work on so much, and that was really the passive system. I felt that doing some massage and also working with joint manipulation, etc., it gave me a more complete. It wasn't complete because it's only a very structural model, but it gave me a much more complete kind of profile with which to work my patients and clients. And things just kind of evolved from there. I had some successes, some failures, and you learn from your failures. So I've explored many avenues, and I feel like every day you're learning. Every day you learn something new. But I feel that I'm equipped with quite a lot of skills that enable me to help most of my patients. And if I can't, then I've got a good network of people that can help them.
Yeah, because I suppose there's only certain things that would require surgery. Like, well, there's nothing we can do here. You're probably going to need surgery on something like that. But do you think there's a lot of the things, like the majority of things that people come in for, are fixable? But what strikes me is that people come to see you maybe sometimes once or twice, but then sometimes on a rolling basis, depends. But it's amazing how just that one visit could actually just help somebody. But there's got to be some things of like lifestyle change that you recommend to people, like, okay, we see that your body's in this position, maybe you want to try do this or try do that. I mean, is there quite a lot of that sort of aftercare, or at least that information to people saying, look, I think you need to change the way you're doing things in life because it might be causing you this problem.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I think with a biomechanical model and a pain model, we're looking at three areas. We're looking at diagnosis to begin with, and then we're looking at the short-term goals, which is obviously to try and get you out of pain. Medium-term goals is really looking at those predisposing biomechanical factors which might have led something to break down in the first place. And then we look at the longer-term things which are just outside of the musculoskeletal. They're a little bit more behavioral, they're a little bit more social. And again, that might require onward referral.
So when I did come in to see you, you were mentioning so many things, and I was like, wow, this is like information overload, because you know quite a lot about the human body. And I bet you that like it's almost, say, somebody who works with something all day on a particular thing can look at it immediately and say, oh, I know what's wrong there. And it felt like when I walked in, you almost have this built-in kind of intuition, as it were, just to look at somebody and see how they're standing, to say, I can see what's wrong immediately. Maybe not the entire body, but at least you could tell quite a lot by the way a person stands, right? Is that something you can see as well?
Yeah. I mean, one of the reasons why, and I'm not plugging anything, but why we called ourselves dynamic osteopathy is that we posture is really important, but there's static posture and there's dynamic posture. And we are moving creatures, but unfortunately we are, and more so now probably than ever, stuck at home, stuck at desks. The body is designed to move, and we're not necessarily doing it justice. So making sure that not only we look after our static posture, but we try and take our body through these other postures and transitional postures that basically lend towards greater function, whatever that function will be.
Have you heard of, I just posted a comment on the chat there, Ido Portal?
Ido Portal, no.
He started this, he says exactly what you're saying, is that the body was made for movement. And so he talks about, making sure that you stay moving all the time. And I think it's a hard thing, especially for my type of job as well. So I'm a data engineer, data architect. And so I'm sitting in my office at least 6 hours of the day. But I was really struck by and intrigued by his message. I watched a YouTube interview with him and Brian Rose on London Real, and it's like a documentary about movement, and he teaches people how to do balancing on poles and stuff, and then just throwing balls up on the wall and just hitting them with their fist like that. So it's almost like the brain starts to create new neural networks just based on coordination and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So he does a lot of like the animalistic movements. So he does the lizard crawl, which I started getting into as well, and the bear crawl and all that kind of stuff. And I was like, it's quite amazing. And I come from a gymnastics background. So when I was probably five years old till about 10, my brother and I did gymnastics, and we did pretty well actually. And we also did motocross, and I started doing weightlifting at an early age, and I did cycling as well. So we were very active as well, my brothers and I. So yeah, movement to me is like it's a wonderful thing. And so I just thought you might have heard of Ido Portal, but what's your take on, if you haven't heard of him, then of the sort of animalistic type movements in exercise?
Yeah, I think it's really important to have a diverse range of motion. A lot of the stuff that we do, less so now from this whole kind of primal movement that's been happening. But typically, if you're a gym goer, you're pushing against some weights, maybe in single plane, or traditionally single plane movements.
Yes, you do shoulder press, which is like just straight up, straight down, right?
Yeah, exactly. So that takes some of the stability away from the rest of the body, because you're sat down, fixed in a position, and then you're basically isolating muscle groups. And the thing about the brain is that it integrates. And what you're talking about there earlier was something we call neuroplasticity. And those neurons are making connections everywhere from different parts of the brain all of the time. Emotion comes from this. So there's certain songs that I hear now coming on the radio, you know, and it takes me back 20, 30 years, and I still get that same kind of emotion, that feel, you know. So there's a whole bunch of stuff there that those connections that perhaps we're not taking advantage of. You know, it might be a stimulus that we, you know, a piece of music or something like that, but it might be a particular task. It's all there for us. It's just that we're not really making those connections. Certainly not if we're sat down on you know, at a desk, you know, on a computer all day.
So one of my questions that I sent you in an email was around like our psychology or our moods, should we say, based on how we take care of this body physically. So obviously there's a lot to say about what we put in, so that our inner environment, so what we drinking, what we eating. Then it's also about what we exposing ourselves to. So that could also be what kind of environment are you in? Is it full of chemicals? Is it, you know, where do you live? Where do you work? Type thing. Is your house mold free? But there's also the resistance, or at least the environment we put our body into, which could be like, let's say, a sauna or something like that, or, you know, a cold plunge pool, for example. You know, so we're putting ourselves in our bodies in these environments all the time. And so I'm just thinking, how does that external environment, you know, play to our moods? So does it affect it? And you know, you would talk about all those type of things, even exercise, what you expose your body to. What's your thoughts on that? How can we, you know, sort of be less depressed and more happy?
So there was a guy called Stanley Kellerman, and he introduced something that I was introduced to back at osteopathy school. You know, as we were asked to do these essays and really look at the you know, the social aspects and the behavioural aspects of individuals. He talked about emotional anatomy, and one of the really striking things, well, the way that he described things was more into pouches. So he would divide the body into pouches, and he would describe the body in relation to these pouches. So someone who has typically a military kind of stance, normally you'd appreciate that as being pretty confident, pretty strong. If you see something that's just a little bit more kind of protected and guarded, you know, maybe it's some kid who's been a little bit bullied in the playground, or is not happy, you know, you can see that. You can see that from the way that people hold themselves. Yeah. So, I mean, there's lots of ways of hiding what we do. You know, we can shield ourselves away from that, and we can put on a front. But the body tends to hold lesions, and if there's a particular thing that's going on, maybe someone's got a tummy ache or something like that, you can always tell, because their body will be rotated and it will try and hug that particular lesion. You know, someone's depressed. You know, you see certain you know, postural demeanor, and you know, sometimes we need to work on the things that are non-musculoskeletal in order to improve the musculoskeletal. So as I mentioned before, when we look at the osteopathic diagnosis, we're looking at a tissue causing symptom, you know, trying to find what that problem is, then the predisposing biomechanical. But actually that might not be the thing. We might need to jump straight to the longer term stuff, you know, in order to change the behavior, change the mind state, and then from there, then the musculoskeletal can follow.
So some people might not like that idea, though. So coming to see you, like, just fix me quickly. I don't want any long-term plans there. Just can you click my back and let's get on with it.
yeah, and that's fine. That's fine. You know, I do get that, and not everyone may have the understanding. It might not fit into their model of healthcare. You know, they just want to get on with life, and they might not want to think about all of the other stuff that might be holding them back. So, you know, but that's their choice. You know, I can only be a you know, a practitioner and do my best by them and advise them what I think would be the most productive for them. Whether they take that up or not, I mean, obviously that's their choice.
I think a lot of people go through, we all go through stages and cycles of thinking of certain things, and we might intentionally make something more important in our lives at a specific time. And that may be because we've had some scenario that's happened that we need to focus more attention on something. Like, for example, a friend of mine, he's a little bit overweight and he's worried about the COVID, because you hear the news that people who are a bit more overweight might be more susceptible to not doing so well with COVID. And I think that people now then start to realize that maybe I should do something about that. And I think, so I suppose not everyone's in the same mindset when they come and see you, for example, like, and they might not be ready to receive certain information. But I suppose it's just a matter of time before, or you find the right guy who's really interested in that, and then he actually does certain things, and then gets gets better quickly. But is it people that's sort of like you see that don't really get better, or do you think there's always like results? There's always something that the customer goes away with, or that do some people just not get better? I suppose is what I'm.
Yeah, I'd like to think that people do get better.
Yeah.
Some people when they come, they don't realize actually how they've got better. They've still got some level of discomfort. So their main goal was to come to me or another practitioner and get out of pain. Now that might be a little bit, that pain might go away a little bit, more in the mid-term, or reduce. But certainly, some of the things that we find is that we are able to make more objective changes, like improving range of motion, changing the state of the soft tissue that is maybe hypertonic, it's too tight, and that's one of the things that is causing the problem. So often it's more about periodizing what we do, and the main goal would be obviously to get them out of pain. But we see it every day. There's so many people in chronic pain states, and it's a very complex area. There's a lot of psychology in there. There's a lot of so what is painful to one individual, is nothing to another. So there's hypersensitivity in certain health conditions. There's hypersensitivity in certain people, and again, sometimes it's about threat, and anxiety. And if someone feels threatened and is more anxious, sometimes those feelings are amplified. So often it's about reassuring someone, trying to calm and reduce some of those threats, and almost talking them around it a little bit, and then being able to deal with the more physical components.
Yeah, so it's almost the body holds the emotion, and the emotion could be the cause of the problem, maybe. It does remind me of.
There's so many examples of that. Yeah, absolutely. So we get projections from our internal system outwards, and vice versa. We see it all the time.
Yeah, Mantak Chia he mentioned that talks about the second brain. I think he says there's some science behind it, that the second brain is in the stomach.
Yeah, the enteric nervous system.
Is that what it's called?
Yeah.
It says if you just think about sometimes when you're really struck with something that maybe it frightens you or something, you kind of feel it in the pit of your stomach.
Yes.
And the emotion is experienced down there, and the emotion is not really experienced in your head.
Yeah.
But you can also get certain emotions that make your heart jump, and then you get the emotions that make your stomach, do something. So I thought that was.
So what that is it's a somatic representation of that feeling. We talk about butterflies in our stomach when we're feeling anxious. That's one example of that somatization. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, that is interesting. So I was going to talk to you about core strength, because I did speak to Dr. Or chiropractor friend of mine, Warren Jordan, on this show a few months ago. So he's a chiropractor, and there's some similarities between chiropractors and osteopaths, I would assume, just based on you guys work with bones.
Yeah,
and I did speak to him about core strength, because you hear, I think chiropractors might focus a bit more on core strength. Not too sure where you stand on that, like how important is like core strength for everyone, not just talking about people who go to the gym and people who are really into fitness, but from young to old, male to female, how important is core strength to just living a good life?
Yeah, I think. I mean, I guess it's what is your definition of core strength? I think
I think it's around that midriff, because we've been told, and this is what I think a lot of people would agree that you say, well, if your core is not strong, which is down in your stomach area and your obliques, then you're prone to getting more backaches. I think it's pretty well spoken, as it would put out there.
Yeah. I mean, there's a few papers that have been produced that really contest the whole kind of core stability thing. Putting it into a bracket. I think a lot of focus has been put onto abdominal strength. I think a lot of focus has been put on, and quite rightly, pelvic floor, diaphragm, all of that kind of thing. And sometimes, if we look at Hodges and Richardson's work from about 20 years ago, there was a whole movement around their focus, which was the activation of the transverse abdominis. Certain milliseconds after a stimulation of moving the shoulder or moving the lower limb, and they found that with back pain there was a greater delay in that timing, and that was taken on by certainly myself. It was a huge movement in the personal training world, a huge movement within the Pilates world as well. Things have moved on a little bit. Some of that information was misinterpreted, I feel, and again, it's been run away with a little bit. I think the one of the most important things is to integrate the body, and the body doesn't just work as a single motor unit. And what I mean by motor unit is a single pathway for a muscle to work. So if I want to lift my finger up like so, it takes all the extensors in here, but it takes also the stabilization from another part of my upper extremity in order to hold that, to be able to then move this with effect. And the body works in chains. Yeah. So when we're doing, when we're playing tennis or whatever, we're not thinking, or maybe initially thinking about where the arm position is in relation to the ball, where we're going to start, where we're going to finish, and then get that timing right. But with practice, you don't have to think about that. You're thinking about where the position is going to be. You're thinking about force play, sending the ball in another direction while you're trying to fool the other or your opponent. So the higher level of control is something that is learned. We need to integrate. We need to get away a little bit from this isolation. Because that isolation, if we're doing,
don't focus too much on just the core. You focus on it, but focus on other things as well.
Integrate, integrate everything. So even when we're moving the arm, we've got to have a stabilization point through the shoulder, through the thorax, through the pelvis, and each is going to have a certain amount of rotation and maybe stability, or any of the other planes of motion. But essentially what's going to happen is that you're going to have a chain from the ground upwards that needs to be appreciated in order to carry out the task that you're, so whether it be hitting a tennis ball, whether it be reaching for a cup, whatever it is, it needs integration. It's not just isolation. So for me, if you're looking at the whole system, you want to appreciate what can be called centering of joints and an optimization of joints through the whole chain of the body within any given task. So for me, the core stabilization, yes, it is important because it needs to bridge that middle ground between the thorax or the upper extremity and the lower extremity. But it needs to be integrated rather than just thinking about crunches, back extension, all that kind of stuff. Okay.
So
does that answer your question?
What's that?
Does that answer your question?
It does, yeah. but I'm still. It's a great viewpoint there, because I like the idea. Obviously, the body is like this amazing machine, or organism that is so capable of doing so many different things. I'm just thinking about what this integration could look like. So let's say I'm working on, well, I want to get a six pack. So some people are like, I want to get a six pack. I want to look good, right? But that's just looking good. But how does it actually help you in life? So I think for me, it's more about when I get to 99, am I able to still stand up in a sprightly fashion, bend down and pick something up without, like, oh, because I've actually done, when I used to do a bit of, when I first moved to England, I did some landscaping. And I did that for about 8 months while I was looking for some better work and not back-breaking work. And when I used to get in the car, I was like, oh my word. I drive in the car for about half an hour later, my back was paining. I was like, oh man, I can't be doing this. So I know what it's like to have like body aches, and when I get out the car, then I'm kind of like hunched over until my back eases up until I could straighten myself out, So I had, and sometimes I still get a little bit of that if I've been driving for a long time. But I'm just thinking like how, what's the type of things that I would need to do if I was trying to avoid like having those kind of aches and pains, or sometimes is it just unavoidable? Are we always going to have like aches and pains because we like living in this body that deteriorates,
Yeah, I mean, the body's designed to move, and it is prone to wear and tear. So as we go through our years, there are going to be certain changes within the body. But essentially, we have a blood flow, we have a drainage system, we have an excavation system, we have an electrical system, so that all of these things can fire. So there's various systems within the body that need to work and to work well together. Now, as soon as you start to reduce movement, add compression on tissues, it's not so long before you're going to get some changes locally, and that might be a pH change. Yeah, so there's a little bit more acidity, there's a little bit more hydrogen ions kind of stuck around, and that can irritate some free nerve endings, and it can cause aches. The body, if you put it into a position for a prolonged period of time, will accommodate that position. We've got things like, the muscles will lengthen. We've got this concept of ligamentous creep, dehydration within the tissues. It doesn't, the recoil in the collagen is not so good. So you can get these stiffnesses, and some are just age related, but by remaining, active, by remaining hydrated, and having a balanced diet, you can offset quite a lot of these nutritional issues that can be related to, stiffness. I think with regard to, sitting posture, I think we need to train ourselves. Sitting isn't something that we should just do. I think sitting is something that we really need to train ourselves for. And I don't think we do that very well. I think that we put a little bit too much weight and position, into certain parts of the body that should be a little bit more integrated. And by sitting down, you just lose a whole connection with the ground. So one of the things that I certainly try and do is I try and maintain a relatively good contact with the ground when I'm sitting. I don't just let the body sit on the sit bones, or I don't let the pelvis just roll back and cause a little bit of a reverse curve in my low back. I did that for a long time, and I found personally that I wasn't able to sit down for more than 15, 20 minutes without experiencing some pain. Now, I worked a lot on that, and I changed that around. And
kind of a straight back.
Sorry, say that again. Sorry, Clint.
You said like when you are cross-legged on the floor with a straight back?
Yeah, so it could be that, or just sat down on a chair. If the position of the relative, because we've got to think about relative motion as well. So if relatively, and you're sat in a cross-legged position, but you're not able to position the pelvis in an upright position, then what that's going to do is it's going to compromise the curves of the spine, and over time it's going to challenge those structures. And when we're born, we have a very different kind of, or when we're a baby, we have a very different structure. The bones are different. They're mainly cartilaginous. But as we go through our years and we start to ossify, and by the age of 21, 22, something like that, all of our bones are ossified. Then then we need to try and maintain that. It's from there that we start to potentially degenerate. So again, we've got to look after this stuff. But up until that point, things are still growing. They're still setting themselves in place. And once there's continual cell turnover, and the bones are no different. We get it in the skin, we get it in various areas, well, all areas. Blood is very high turnover of cell, but we get it in the bones as well. And it's that growth and that deposition will be related to the forces that are acting upon it. So if we can, center our joints in a good, and look after our postures, static and dynamic, we stand a much better chance of maintaining number one, good alignment, but also integration of and a good shape of the osseous structures, the bone structures. So we reduce wedging, we reduce the extraneous forces that can cause a little bit of lipping in certain structures. Sometimes we get little spurs into the shoulder, and that's all because certain structures are pulling on the bone a little bit too hard. So if, again, we can get some balance there, then we should do better.
Yeah, I think for myself, like I think about how my hamstrings are so tight, and I'm thinking, yes, I need to stretch, but I hate stretching. I don't know if people out there can agree. Some people love stretching; they're like, oh, I love the feeling, but I'm like, I don't really love it so much. But I want to ask you a question now about. We spoke about the collagen in the joints. And maybe this is a bit of a dangerous question, so I'm not too sure how you feel about, supplementing for joint health, and particularly if we start with collagen protein or collagen peptides. What's your take on taking extra supplements? Because I know we get it from our food. You might eat foods that have collagen in them, and your body is producing collagen at the same time. But what's your take on supplementing more? Because at the age of 21, apparently, you do lose 1% of your collagen production every year.
So I think there's a word, assimilation, and when we're looking at a food product, essentially, there's all sorts of things that go with that. The smell of it, gets the salivary glands going, but also, even looking at something, starting to smell something, the gut starts churning. That food is going to become us. It will become us, but it needs to go through a process, and we need to be able to, extract some of those starches from there. We need to extract the proteins. We need to extract the minerals and all the nutrients that are associated with that particular food. Now, sometimes we don't do so well, and I heard a stat a while ago that for every year above 40 you lose about 1% of your potency of stomach acidity. Now, I'm not sure how accurate that is, but one thing that we can take from that is that as we age, we may not be getting enough from our food. And what we need to do is we need to have a first line of defense for kind of bacteria and all that kind of stuff. So that will be our noses, that will be our taste buds, that will be the emotion, how something looks, But in order to break that stuff down, we need to macerate it. We need to break it down. We need to coat it in amylase from the mouth, so saliva, and then we need to be able to swallow it. As we're chewing, we have to chew sufficiently to get it down to a small enough portion that we can actually start to digest. Then the stomach acidity has to be there to protect us, but it also has to be there to start to break stuff down. Yeah, and then we get the other system working from the gallbladder and the liver and the pancreas. So they're excreting all of their juices, to break down fats, to aid with the breakdown and the storage of sugars, etc. All of that has to work well for that first part, and then once it's broken down, then we can start to absorb it. Now, what happens if there's some inflammation in the gut? The villi, which are like little finger-like projections that come out within the luminal space of the tubing system, it increases surface area. But if those microvilli are flat because of inflammation, you're not going to absorb well. So so if you can't extract the good stuff from your food, you need to supplement.
Okay.
Yeah. So and in a lot of inflammatory conditions, you won't be able to get the stuff sufficiently from your food, and you will need to seek some level of supplementation. You know, and we can see it in the condition of the hair, the condition of the skin, nails. You know, you see a lot of stuff in the nails that give you a good indication of gut health.
What would you look for in the nails? This, if someone could just have a look at their nails and say, this might be something to look at.
Yeah, so sometimes with gastrointestinal issues, we see transverse lines. There'll be little ridges that go transversely. The nails might be brittle. You might the skin around the nail might be a little bit broken and weak. You might find little white spots in the nail or little pitting areas. You know, and again, you see some white spots, huh?
Little smaller white spots every now and then.
Okay, all right.
What is that?
So there may be some absorption issues there related to that. Yeah.
Lately, I've been struggling to get my food digested. I could just feel like I'm always full. So I'm like, what's going on with my stomach? I don't know. So yeah, it could be stomach bile and all that. So I should just check it out. But yeah, I'm not indestructible. I think
good idea. These are little signs. You know, these are little things that are that have some clinical significance, but they might not. You might not have symptoms. You know, but there'll be these little signs. You know, that we can see in the body. You know, before something becomes clinically significant.
Yeah, for sure. We've got to pay attention to that. So let's go. So supplements, just quickly, I'll move on to also swimming. Maybe we could talk about swimming, how it is good for the joints and stuff. And then maybe function over fashion. So we'll just click on that for a minute. But just before we move off of this one, vitamin C, glucosamine, glutathione, those types of things. Is there any other supplements that you think are worthy of notes, like fish oils maybe? I don't know. Is there something that you are particularly fond of?
Yeah, so a while ago, I got interested in functional medicine. So while you mentioned fish oils, I think they're hugely important. Now, not everyone will be able to tolerate fish oil, and I know certain individuals that because of an issue with the ability to emulsify fats, they would find that, you know, having pure oil would make them feel nauseous. You know, so it's not necessarily for everyone, but there might be an underlying problem that needs to be addressed before you can supplement with this kind of product. But there's within the cell, it has what we call a phospholipid bilayer. Yeah, so there's phosphor and there's fat, you know, and we need good fat to produce a good healthy wall to the cell, and the body will just take anything. It will take what it's got, you know. But if it's got the really good stuff, it will take that. And when we're looking at fish oils, it's one of the supplements that I would probably spend more money on. You know, I wouldn't necessarily go out and buy the cheapest just because you can. But obviously, the body, you do what you can. But if there is one thing that I would recommend, is that if you are going to use some fish oil, then get one that has been purified. You don't really want any toxins in there and PCBs. We want to have as pure product as we can, and the body will love you for it. As long as we're able to tolerate fats. In that way. Vegetarians and for vegans as well. I mean, it's a challenge, you know. So you know, making sure that you're getting your omegas from, you know, things like flax, etc., are really important. But also flaxseed oil, it doesn't last so long. And often it's much cheaper to buy it in larger quantities. But for me, if you're going to buy a flax, buy it in smaller quantities. Use it well, use it relatively quickly too, because it can go rancid quite quickly.
Yeah, you don't want to put rancid stuff in your body, for
You
sure.
really don't.
One of my things that that I've learned, and I source I just wrote a few oils that I believe are good. Coconut oil, but obviously virgin cold pressed, olive oil as well. But when you do buy olive oil, make sure it's not in a clear bottle and it's cold pressed, extracted. No processing done on it, and it comes in a dark bottle. And I think because if it's exposed to too much light, it can go rancid too quickly. And then I also believe in ghee, so ghee butter. But it's hard to find ghee butter that comes from grass-fed cows. Unfortunately, it's pretty hard to get your hands on that kind of stuff. But and I've also got my hands on recently macadamian oil. I'm not too sure about its health benefits, but it is cold pressed. So I think you're pretty safe if it's cold pressed oils. But I would stay away from canola and stuff in sunflower oils, even if they are cold pressed. So I'd lean more towards olive oil, coconut oil, the fish oils, and such like that. But I'll probably eat too many oils.
Well, I think eating oil is actually really important, hugely important, in fact. But also to get the balance right as well. Our diets are very much rich in the omega-6s.
Yeah.
So that's going to come from animal fats, etc. You talked about ghee and butter and all that kind of stuff. So there's going to be rich in omegas, but of the 6. We need to get this balance between the 3s and the 6. Yeah, because in the cascade of breaking it down, if it's 6 dominant, then that can be inflammatory. And if you are with inflammatory conditions or issues, then you may want to look at that balance a little bit.
Yeah, definitely. 100% agree. So what about, just as we sort of come to the end of our chat here, I just want to make sure that we cover certain things about recovery, for example. And I've heard it said that, I remember I went to a doctor years ago and he suggested swimming as a form of recovery because it's less pressure on the joints, I think it is. So what is this something that you've studied, thought about, or talk about at all?
I think swimming is really, really useful for a lot of reasons. Now, I'm no swimmer, but I do have friends that are, and they're national and international kind of athletes, and they're one thing that I flail around in the water. It's very inefficient. But they are super duper efficient, and their ability to convert, convert that energy through the water for that propulsion is phenomenal. And they tend to be really balanced as far as athletes are concerned. We tend to not do too much with our upper extremities. But we're in swimming, you're pulling yourself through that water, and it's almost like I guess it's moving a little bit more towards that primal stuff where we're using the upper extremities for movement, for loading, for propulsion, and we don't really do that as a bipedal. So it's really important for integration of movement patterning. You're working right and left side brain simultaneously. You've got that cross pattern. You've got the body moving in sync, out of sync, as when depending on which stroke. It's really diverse and really important. And as far as motor patterning is concerned, you're working the whole system.
Very good. So it's something to think about if you're listening today and think, well, maybe I should get to that swimming pool. Unfortunately, we can't right now because of lockdown.
No, not yet.
Yeah, I was just thinking about this swimming pool up the road here, and they got a sauna as well. Then I think I really want to get into a sauna as well. I wish they had a dipping pool, like a little cold plunge pool. That'd be awesome. I'd be so there. but they don't. So I'll just have to get
Well,
a hot tub.
it's great to shock the body in that way. We tend to shy away from cold a little bit. But there's lots of circulatory benefits of doing plunge pool work and getting that contrast bathing. I mean, we use contrast bathing quite a lot when we've got swelling or trying to improve circulation.
Okay.
But you can have it as a whole body approach. Absolutely.
Yeah, for sure. You can't take it for granted. When we were kids, my dad used to have this like timeshare holiday thing, and we used to go up to it was called Magaliesberg up in Pretoria in South Africa. And this place had everything, a steam room, sauna, dipping pool, and everything. And we used to just love it. We used to go in that sauna, dip in that pool. You didn't know the health benefits back then, we're just kids, right? But yeah, we used to love that. There was squash courts there. We used to play that, play golf as well. So yeah, well, a whole lot of fun. But unfortunately, at the moment, we can't be having that kind of fun even we wanted to. We're stuck indoors. So when people are indoors now and maybe they're moving stuff around because they're bored, this is the last thing I want to talk about is picking stuff up, right? So you're really going to be careful if you're picking something up heavy in your house. Maybe first of all, think about whether you need to pick it up. Second of all, can you get help? Third of all, make sure you pick it up the right way. So do you see like people coming with injuries because they picked up something heavy and they shouldn't have? And what's the kind of injury rate on those kind of things?
Yeah, sure. I mean, I see it all the time. Time. And I think, the one big question that people kind of come with is, why today? I've done this all my life. I've been lifting things. Why today? Why did it hurt today? I think that some of these things, they come over time. It's not necessarily that you've done one thing, because all these innocuous things like bending forwards, doing up your shoelaces, and then all of a sudden you pulled your back. It just doesn't make sense. It's a very small load, a very regular movement pattern, but all of a sudden on one day that it just caused the back to go into spasm, and it is that little straw that broke the camel's back. So I think adaptation and compensation are two other big words that we have in osteopathy, and I think we adapt to our environment in the best way our system can, and sometimes it needs a little bit of help. You do something in the same way, and something is going to break down if there's any inefficiencies in there. So we want to try and kind of tease those out. And it's not necessarily that lifting is bad. Bad lifting is bad. Bad lifting is bad over a period of time. And if you can have someone look at the way that you're compensating to do that task, because lots of things can, I don't look so great on the dance floor, but there's a lot of people that do. I'm still dancing, but there's no grace in my movement. But other people will be really graceful, and there'll be people that are graceful when picking stuff up. And there will be other people that it just looks so laborsome. You do question why are you doing that. So if you can educate the body and you can make these movements a little bit more efficient, generally you're gonna do well.
Yeah, that's very good. So it's weird. I did the same thing. Like I was just leaning. It wasn't too long ago either. Probably 2 years ago. I leaned over, did my shoelace, and I must have popped a disc or something with a hernia. Like I think it's that thing that with a little bit of the stuff spurts out and then it hits a nerve or something. I don't know. I've done that, and I've also did it playing touch rugby. Oh boy! So I was like, oh man.
But these things build up, and it's sometimes it's a very small regular movement that we do every day that is just the thing that just causes it to go. And all of a sudden now that structure is meeting something that's pain sensitive, and then all of a sudden you're feeling those symptoms.
Actually, it just reminds me, because I remember when I did speak to Warren Jordan on this LifeShot podcast. It was around the time I just slipped a disc, as they call it, or herniated a disc. And I remember now that the week before it happened, I was playing touch rugby with the guys, and I was doing a lot of kicking, and the kicking where you do the drop kick, right? So basically, you think about a drop kick. So and my body's not used to drop kicking because I don't normally drop kick, right? So I'm drop kicking this probably like half an hour of the game. I'm just kicking the ball everywhere, and I think I felt a little twinge, and then there's the week after is when it went. So that must have been the build up. Just thinking about it.
Yeah.
So
Those little warnings,
yeah.
and you kind of see it through and hope that it's going to get better, but sometimes it does, until the next time. That structure is just compressed or overly stressed, and it's that kind of summation, and then off it goes. The body needs some.
But just the last thing then. So what should I have done at that point if I knew? I felt a little twinge there. I better not go too hard next week. What should I have done that week that would have helped me? Is it just a matter of rest, or is it a matter of mobility and stretching?
Yeah, so it could be all of those. It could be all of those things. I think the muscles tend to do really well when you improve the circulation. Unless there's some frank trauma, then you might want to use some ice and some other management kind of strategies. But if it's a muscular strain, they generally do quite well with some heat and some gentle movement. Okay, obviously there are times where that doesn't happen. But if it's something that's happening regularly, then I'll probably go and seek some consult with perhaps an osteopath, physiotherapist, chiropractor, someone that you've heard recommended, or has helped someone and they'll be able to have a look at you and be able to tell you what they think is going on. And if it's something that sometimes we're shooting in the dark with what to do, if you can get some guidance, you can offset these things quite well. And if it is something that is a little bit more chronic, either having some a course of treatment, or stepping in every now and again just to make sure that things are not kind of jamming up. That would be a really good thing to do, I think, and that will inform your choices. Some people, they just do one sport. That lends itself to overuse. So having a diversity of sport. If you're a runner and it's very linear, trying to do something that's multi-directional, that can be really useful. But not necessarily hitting it hard at the beginning, but to introduce some of those things. So then the body has a period where it can accommodate that, and then you can build up from it.
Yeah, for sure. I'm gonna come see you about that because I think I slip my desk too often. Although I'm getting better now because I'm increasing my core strength. You see.
Whatever that is.
Yeah, I just trying to make my body more resilient against slipping the disc. But like I mentioned to you when I came to see you, is that I think because I pushed my body quite hard, and actually I did hurt my back again the other day, but it was more in the middle of my back. I was doing a kettlebell. Well, I was at a kettlebell over my head, lying on the floor, doing like kind of like sit-ups like this, and pushing myself too hard. And my wife says, "What are you doing, man?" So I'm like, I'm just trying to look good, just trying to get the six-pack going here. Got to look good, got to pop it out. But no. So yeah, this is it's problem when you're trying to look good and then you hurt yourself. So yeah, so just be aware, people. You can't be doing that all the time. But yeah, so every now and then I'm going to go see Daniel. He's going to sort me out. And I'm back on the road again.
I'll do my best, Clint.
For sure. Daniel Rollins, it's been so good having you on the show, and talking about this type of thing is really, really interesting. And thanks for your input.
You're welcome. Nice to chat with you on this format.
Yeah, for sure, man. And we'll put it out there on the podcast as well. It's live at the moment. We've had a few listeners coming on. I saw that. But where can people get hold of you? And that's obviously at this lockdown time. I think you're still seeing patients or not, or What are you doing?
Yeah, we're quite fortunate. I mean, we are essential workers.
Yeah.
For anyone that comes that is doing face-to-face, we need to screen for that to make sure that they're safe to come into the clinic. We are also offering online consults where we can chat about some of this stuff and maybe go through the case history. It's a very good medium by which to work, and something that's really come out of this whole kind of pandemic is that actually there's a lot of stuff that we can do online to get people moving better and back to health. It's not all about the manipulation or the soft tissue release or whatever. There's a lot of stuff that we can advise online too. So even if you are vulnerable, there's still things that we can do online.
Yeah, for sure. Do you guys have like a website or something?
Yeah, so we're Dynamic Osteopathy here in Cambridge. Myself, I can be found online if you just type in Daniel Rollins Osteopath, and I'm here in Cambridge and also in London.
Yeah, I'll just put it on the screen quick. So like that, Dynamic Osteopathy. Did I spell it right?
Perfect.
Not too bad with the spelling. Although my kids are gonna start doing better at spelling than me. They like champion spelling bee kids. The thing is, my kids, their mother, my wife, is a teacher, and my mother-in-law is a teacher, and so during this lockdown, the kids are like working hard, man. See them yet till 4 o'clock in the afternoon,
and they're super smart these days.
Smart,
I don't remember us or myself and my peers being this smart at that age. I mean, they're super smart.
Yeah, they start telling me things I don't know. At the age of like 8, I'm like, what? Serious? I didn't know that. How do you know that? Why do you know that?
Maybe it's there. Maybe it's in one of those connections way back.
It is probably stored somewhere there, and then it's like don't need that information. But when your teacher gives it to you, thanks. But I'll just store that back in the memory banks there. But what's important to me right now is like just enjoying life, making sure that I'm healthy and that my kids are healthy, and that we help other people out there to just feel the best and just stay healthy, I suppose. And it's a whole lot of factors like we've just spoken about. It's internal, it's external, it's your moods, it's the psychology, there's a whole lot of things at play. It's not just what are you eating and how are you exercising, but it's also about how we treat ourselves, how we thinking about when you look in the mirror, what do you see? Do you accept that person on that side? And that's a whole nother thing we can get into. But Daniel, it's been great speaking to you tonight, and wish you all the best, and we'll chat soon.
Thank you, Clint.
No worries. Cheers, mate.